All right, guys, so I have a treat for you. While we are still in the aftermath of the Kanye interview, holding that in the vault, revealing it to the world, and then the world sort of realizing that everything that we were told about Kanye 2 years ago, that him having a mental breakdown, that he was crazy, that he was angry, was a carefully constructed lie. The media, of course, trying to bury him with headlines because they didn't want you to hear what he was actually saying. And then when you actually heard what he had to say, thanks to this vault interview, you went, oh, that's really interesting, actually. He's making some very sound points. Here's a reality that you've probably come to if you've been watching this podcast. Virtually every person in the media that is being attacked the hardest, there is a reason that they are being attacked. There is a truth that the media is trying to obscure. And so now I think it's my duty to speak to the most canceled, quote unquote, canceled people that are out there to figure out why it is the media hates them so much. And who's hated more than the Tate brothers? I really don't think there is anyone that is arguably hated more than the Tate brothers. I think they rank higher than Ye does. So I'm going to have a conversation with both of them today. First and foremost, we are going to speak with Tristan Tate. Welcome to the Candice podcast.
Welcome. I'm very happy to be here. And this is the least pregnant I've ever seen me. So congratulations on the new arrival. Yeah. It's absolutely amazing.
It's always a new arrival. The new arrival, I'm either pregnant, still pregnant, pregnant again. So this is just the rare 8 months.
Doing your job, repopulating the earth. I love to hear it. I love to hear it.
So I've been wanting to speak to you for a very long time. Obviously, when I went out to Romania the first time and I interviewed just Andrew, but then I had such a remarkable conversation with you. And I realized that, oh gosh, I should have definitely interviewed Tristan because there's so much that he has to say. You're quite incredibly well read, first and foremost. But I want to start with just speaking about traditional masculinity. And there was this one moment that you were describing to me, really the circumstances of what it took for you to survive mentally when you and your brother were put into a prison and there were no charges against you.
No.
Can you describe, first and foremost, just remind us how long you were put into that cell, how big the cell was, and what the environment was like?
Well, Romania has a very, I guess, smart way of dealing with their prison system. What they do is instead of investing money in the prison system, they eat all the money in fines for treating prisoners badly because it's cheaper than actually constructing new prisons. So every single prison here is built during the communist regime. None of them have been upgraded. None of them are nice at all. The cell was about 4 yards by 4 yards by 3 yards. I'll use yards because I know you're an American. I like to use meters, of course, but two sets of bunk beds, tiny toilet in the corner. It's not a toilet, it's a hole in the ground, quite literally. And then there's a shower overhead that is either way too hot or way too cold. I was there for 92 days. And if I had known I'd be there for 92 days, it would have been a much easier task. However, every 2 to 3 weeks, I'd have a court hearing to see if I was there for longer, if I was going to be released and put on house arrest. So I didn't know when I was going to get out, which was, I guess, the most mentally challenging part of it. But it got a lot easier towards the end when I was put in the same cell as my brother. And then my only role, my only job, my only focus was keeping Andrew mentally focused and keeping Andrew happy and making Andrew laugh. And I didn't even care about the fact that I was in jail because I am my brother's keeper. You know, it's good to have your brother's back. So, you know, if I woke up and he was depressed or he was sad or he was angry, I didn't care about my own mental state. It was, how's Andrew doing? And that's all I really focused on.
I think that it's interesting because I just like to assess culture where most people try to attack it. And of course, when you see a movement happening, especially if it's a populist right movement, people behind Trump, they just go, it's a bunch of white supremacists that are dusting off their Klansmen cloaks.
Of course.
Yeah, they see you and Andrew. It's like, oh, it's all of these misogynist boys who just hate women and want to grow up and rape them. And that's what's happening. And of course, that's so silly and it's so stupid. And I always want to claw back and really understand what it is that people are responding to. And what you're hitting upon, and I think it's kind of one of the most remarkable things about you and Andrew is this brotherhood, that when you guys speak with each other, when you are together, it just feels like you're watching what it is, family.
Yeah.
And we have been so removed from that in society. The concept of loyalty, the concept of brotherhood, the concept of looking after your family member through everything, thick and thin. And you guys have definitely been through the thick and you stand by each other. That when you tell that story of just like, you know, I just suddenly wanted to make sure that Andrew was okay and you're in this cell and you don't know when you're going to go out. I just think it's remarkable. I think it's people could never imagine what that challenge would be like to try to keep yourself sane while you are caught in this cell for how many hours? I mean, it's just, do they let you out in the play yard?
Play yard? Play yard. This is Romania, Candice. This very average hotel is the best hotel we have. You think the prisons have play yards? Everyone asked me that. How was the church? How was the gym? Did you get yard time? I'm like, yard time? No. You are in that room and that is it. So I was escorted to and back from the courthouse in a armored police van, and that was it. You don't leave the room. You don't ever get a chance to breathe fresh air. Gosh. First time in my life I've ever been sunburned because, I'm mixed race and I just tan. But the horrible food and the 92 days in jail when I first got out, it was springtime. That was the first time in my life I'd ever been sunburned because I hadn't had the sun shine on my face or my skin for all that time. No, you are just in that room.
There's no window.
There is a window. I still remember the view. I could probably paint a picture from memory of the exact view. I'm facing a very ugly communist era apartment block. And there's a tiny corner of a park. I drive past it sometimes to make myself feel better. I literally drive past my jail just to make myself smile.
All right, guys, it's summertime. That tends to be the time that a lot of people let go of their routines. But one routine that you should never let go of is your prayer routine, especially now with everything that's going on in the world, which is a perfect opportunity to remind you about the Hallow app, which is the #1 Christian prayer app in the world. I know that I will be continuing my daily habit of praying by using their app. And it is a great source, such a great resource for the entire family to connect more with God. So if you're looking for a place to start, Hallow is it. You can check out their new scripture series on the Gospel of John with biblical scholar Jeff Cavins and Jonathan Rumi, who portrays Jesus in The Chosen, or some new upcoming content with Jim Caviezel, who is the actor from Sound of Freedom, and of course The Passion of the Christ, which is a family favorite. Just incredible, real, true story of Christ. Using the app is such a great way to spend a few minutes every day meditating on scripture and speaking to God about what he wants for your life. Prepare your mind and heart for the chaos of this world by building your foundation of daily prayer today on Hallow. If you want to download 3 months for free, just go to hallow.com/Candice. Again, that's hallow.com/Candice for 3 months free. So the first day that you guys got out, I vividly remember the picture in the news and like the unkempt hair, and like you guys are smiling, and can you just tell me what that day was like? Just hearing the news, I guess, did you go to the courthouse first and then they let you go, or how did that out, and what did you think, and how was sleeping in your own bed?
So this is the craziest thing. You have to understand that even the Romanian police officers and the Romanian prison guards knew that I was unjustly imprisoned. A lot of them, and I can't say their names because they get in trouble, but a lot of them, the high-level people in the prison would say to me, look, guys, I'm sorry you're here. This is just the way it is, And when I got the news that I was free, so you'd go to court and you'd wait for the phone call. Now Andrew was always hopeful of going home. Andrew, every single time that we were waiting for this phone call, which was 6 or 7 times over the period, Andrew would be like, oh, maybe we'll go home. What we can do, we can go home. I was just like, nope, it's a matrix attack. They're going to keep us in jail forever. We're going to be here years. I just went to sleep. I ignored the news. So when the news came through, my lawyer told us we were going home. I literally banged on the prison door and I said, I shouted in Romanian, I'm going home. The words are Mărgem acasă in Romanian. And everybody, the guards, the prisoners, everybody erupted in this massive cheer. Because everybody knew I shouldn't have been there in the first place. Everybody erupted in this massive, applause. And it was, it was a very, very good feeling. And sleeping in my own bed, it's one of those times. You're not a party animal like me. You've probably never been so drunk that you wake up and you don't know where you are. But I've been there. And it was one of those times where literally I woke up probably 5-10 times during the night and I didn't know where I was. It took a while to kind of adjust. I still had my prison beard, and you feel the cockroaches, the insects, everything that used to wake you up, the mosquitoes, everything that used to wake you up in jail. You feel it in your dreams or in your subconscious, and you're like, I'd shoot awake every single time. But yeah, it was very strange. I didn't know where I was. And it took me 3 or 4 days of sleeping in my own bed until I realized I was actually free to walk around my house and see my friends and talk to people. It was an experience like none other. You couldn't replicate it. No matter how much money you had, no matter who you hired, you couldn't possibly replicate that feeling.
I have a theory, which came from my buddy Dave Smith, that, part of the reason that you and your brother are being so attacked is because you represent a real threat to what you guys term the Matrix.
Yes.
They managed to enslave the majority of human civilization. via either banking. People have bank debts debts that are usually accrued because of education. They've enslaved their minds via the education system. And also they've enslaved them because if it ever came down to it, the majority of people wouldn't be able to fight for their freedom, quite literally fight for their freedom. And then you take a look at what you and your brother have built. And I had not even realized how successful Hustler University was. It's a full disruption to traditional education system that most kids can afford and don't need to go into six-figure debt for, because it's $49.99 for a course. And I actually hired someone not realizing they were a Hustler University graduate, and they've been an incredible employee.
Yes.
And this is a person from the wrong side of the tracks who now has an opportunity, and he's learning how to make money in this world. And he's not doing it because he has to first figure out how to pay all of these debts like I did with student loans. Yeah. And then you have these two brothers, and they're embodying the family, and they're speaking about traditional masculinity, like, I'll beat you in a fight. Yeah. Like just that old school, like, I will beat you up in a fight. And that's not really allowed today. You can't disrupt how they're enslaving people without them essentially owning you, and people thinking that it's something new, but it's really the same thing that's old. And you guys truly are free and sit outside of the bounds of their control.
It's not just the ability to fight or the will to fight. I think what me and Andrew embody that a lot of people don't quite understand is, what would you fight for? A lot of people who maybe are trained, are smart, can shoot, can fight, they're not a threat because they don't have an ideology that they're willing to defend. And I think that when I say, I gave this example to your husband, who I love, by the way, quick shout out, pure bromance. I love that guy. I was talking to him earlier, and I said, I'm worried right now. I'm worried, genuinely. Not about these new charges and these cases. This doesn't scare me, but I'm worried they're going to hit Andrew with a charge for inciting riots. And I'm worried about how I'm going to get myself put in jail with him. I might just have to incite some riots myself if they charge him with this. I'm worried about how I can get into jail to be there with him. So it's not just the ability to fight and the ability to be masculine and to be a masculine man. It's giving people something to fight for. Your family, your ideology, your church, your religion. That's what they try and strip from everybody, because a willingness to fight is far more scary than an ability to fight. I say this to my friends. Some of my friends are not professional fighters like me and my brother are, but my friends would be willing. If I got jumped by 50 men, they'd be willing to fight, which is a lot scarier than a man who can fight but won't. So that's what we're trying to give people, a reason to defend your beliefs, a reason to stand up for yourself, a reason to say no to all the agendas pushed down our throat, a reason to see something on TV and call it out as bull in front of your family members, no matter how excommunicated you're going to get because they're all liberals. We're giving people a reason to stand up. And the fact that our lives have been so successful, and the fact that people in Hustlers University, people in our private networks have been so successful, is now opening a lot of eyes. Like, okay, well, if I stick by my brothers, if I stick by my beliefs, if I stick by my friends, if I stand on my word, if I don't betray my morals, this is what can happen. If I was a degenerate bum sleeping outside on the streets ranting, people wouldn't listen to me. So the success is also very scary for them, because I'm showing young men, like the person who now works for you. He has zero student debt. He's a
hustler. It's the only way I can describe him. He just literally...
And he's fantastic at his job.
He's fantastic at his job. He learned editing skills at Hustler University for, what is it, $50?
$50 a month. So he probably spent $250 on his education.
Right.
And he's learning from the best in the world.
Right. And so, they're not going to allow that. And I do think that part of what you guys embody is what most people see as fantasy on their screens. They have this visceral response, men and women too, when you watch the movie 300. I love that movie. It's amazing. But the reality is that the majority of people wouldn't have kicked somebody down the hole and said, no, we're fighting, and looked around and said, no, we're going to war.
Yes.
We're outnumbered, right? Yeah. And we're probably going to lose. But we would rather lose and have every one of our men in our tribe killed and murdered than to subjugate to the whims of this kingdom. And I don't think people really understand what it is they love about that movie, Yes. Because it hits at something in their spirit that they know is the way things should be. Yes. Right?
And you're certainly, you've kicked a few people down a few holes very recently, saying no names, but we all know who I'm talking about. But yeah, it's a part of being on the right side of history, as I see it. I don't see a world where maybe I lose, maybe we lose. I mean, who knows? Where it spirals into this degeneracy, this Weimar Republic of, post-World War I Germany, and the whole world becomes a degenerate hole. I don't see a world where rational, sane people are going to look back on me and Andrew and our message and you, because, you know, the internet is now forever. And people are going to be able to watch this stuff and say, these people were wrong. These people were truly evil. I don't think that you'll be able to psyop people that much. And I have, you know, children, you have children, and I'm not going to let this world, I'm going to do the most I can. I'm going to do my absolute best to make sure that I leave this world a better place for them, you know, whether or not it puts me in jail or not. I mean, spoiler alert, I'm not a human trafficker. That doesn't make any sense.
And what's actually funny is that everything that they accuse people of doing is what they are. And this gets into, I need to do a full episode on this, but like they accused Michael Jackson of pedophilia because they are the pedophiles. They are pedophiles. Like the media is literally an ecosystem that was built to protect pedophiles. Yes. Right. And once you start realizing, like we said before we got live here, that Alex Jones was right when he started speaking about the satanic worshiping elites that are all pedophiles. I remember first hearing Alex Jones being like, "This man is like
insane
on crack."
I was in my early 20s, and he's sitting there super energetic as always, ranting about these satanic pedophiles and how they're drinking the blood of children. I was like, really? Like, they're just politicians. I mean, they're not that bad.
How could that be happening?
Turns out he was completely right about everything. And I feel like what Alex Jones knows, because here's the real scary part, tip of the iceberg, right? This is what Alex Jones knows, and this is what he's waking everyone up to. And this is what we now understand, and we're trying to wake people up to. What don't we know yet? What are we going to discover in the next 10 years? What if the culture of the world changes, Trump gets in charge, a bunch of right-wing politicians take control of Europe as they should, and start digging into the files? What are we actually going to find out? That's the scary part.
Yeah, we don't know.
I don't know. I
mean, the more that I learn about anything, I'm just like, the school system exists to make you stupid, but convince you that you're smart. Yes. As they're going around the world, deleting history. I think it's part of the reason why we keep plundering the Middle East, is because they want no relative history, because that allows these Marxists, because that's who they are, to rewrite it. And the reality is that America got overtaken by Marxism. It happened in waves, like the 1848ers that came and established, Pfizer family was in that. The people who established kindergarten were in that. And then again in 1880, after they assassinated the Tsar in Russia, under the guise of pogroms. This was the excuse. Oh, all of these people just have to be allowed into America unchecked. Okay, but a huge portion of those people were the people that overthrew him and were actually psychopathic, and then went on to mass murder Christians. And then a few of those people then established the Diamond District in America. Julius Armand, like Armand Hammer's family. Armand Hammer, the actor, is named Arm and Hammer for a reason. Yes, exactly. Okay, it is known that his father was, or however many grandfathers, was considered Stalin and Lenin's favorite Jew. Right? Which then kind of gets into the question of the media, who for a very long time tried to convince us that Stalin and Vladimir Lenin were anti-Semitic. And then I learned, wait, Stalin was married to... Yes, they were literally a part of the Jewish cabal that, you know, and credit when I talk about crushing history, or if you even say that, which I'm saying it, because I looked into it and I found a friend who understands Georgian, and they're like, everybody knows that Stalin was Jewish. And I'm like, but Americans don't know this. But 10 days, they were the good guys. They helped us defeat Nazi Germany. They were the good guys. They were on our team. Mass murdering Christians. Oh, 100 million people. That doesn't matter. That doesn't matter. 100 million people got murdered. No. They're on our team. They're the good guys. That's what the history books say. It's terrifying. Wild. It's wild. Yeah. And then saying it gets you put in jail. Right. Literally. Saying it. And you just spoke about Weimar Republic, and I would like to talk about that more extensively, because one of the things that I got attacked for, which shocked me, and then I realized that the elites are protecting pedophiles, was I spoke about Magnus Hirschfeld and how he was a full sexual pervert with pedophilic tendencies, who had weird sex objects all around the Sex Institute. And again, tip of the iceberg. What don't we know about this man? That's the scary part. What will we never find out? You know, what will we never find out? That's the scary part. But yeah, Weimar Republic is it's how the world is going. Certainly in my lifetime. You're my age, slightly younger than me, I think. In my own lifetime, I've seen it happen. I've seen things on television, on the internet, that wouldn't have been acceptable. I remember back in the early 2000s, they would censor music videos, and they'd only play certain music videos late at night if a girl was in a bikini. I literally remember that world. And to look around today at, especially the United States, I know you live there, sorry, or the United Kingdom, my home country, it's quite frankly disgusting, and nobody seems to think it. They did it so slowly and so gradually, and they've infected us with this virus, which has grown over time. It's infected the minds of every single person in the UK, where you don't even see it anymore. Literally, you're blind to the fact that they've
destroyed your culture and destroyed a world that's safe to raise children in, which I think is one of the goals. And for anyone who doesn't know what the Weimar Republic is, I encourage you to look it up and look at what happened.
And not on Google.
Oh yeah, not on Google. No way. You got to use BitChute. You got to use all these fringe websites that, but why aren't we allowed to talk about it? Why aren't we allowed to talk about the problems?
That's the big question.
Yes.
And you realize that they have taught us World War II history like we're children. I mean, it's everything they've told us. Virtually everything they told us is either not true or a snippet of the truth or omitting something that would make us question more of their narrative. And they freaked out when I shared a BBC documentary, no less, because they had tried to wipe this from the universe about how Germans were ethnically cleansed. Following World War II.
Yes.
So there was no war going on.
Nope.
Immediately after, they allowed Stalin's to just go in. And
Poland, Czechoslovakia, they just wiped them off the face of the map.
It's insane. And then to know that prior to World War II, there's a book written by a guy, last name Kaufman, I'm blanking on the first name, where he said it's Germany must perish.
Yeah.
They literally wanted to get rid of Anglo-Saxons. And so when you have that context and you're going, whoa, why was I never told about this book, which was published in America, about he wrote a book about how they would have to just annihilate them, how they had to make them infertile, that they couldn't produce. And then you hear at the end of that war, what was done to German speaking civilians. And that should send a chill down your spine that you don't know it. That is what scares me, that we were never taught it, which means that we were specifically told an angle, and that angle has been protected for a very long time for a reason that must be evil, because lies can only be served to protect evil.
Yes. And you know what? And I'm going to get put in jail anyway, so I don't care. I'm going to speak my mind because you're here. So I actually realized this very, very early on. So I've always been a big history buff. And when I was 19, 20, 21, I was still traveling the world a little bit. And then I realized that every single country has their own version of World War II history. Every single country is different, even all the ones that we're supposed to agree with. Every country is different. France teaches that, the French resistance overthrew the Nazis and they never really surrendered because the French were still fighting and they won the war even though they surrendered. Poland obviously lost epically to both sides. However, the Polish are taught that it was the Polish men who stood up and blah, blah, blah. The Russian actually version of World War II is the most accurate that can be taught, because they talk about all the major fighting and all the heavy lifting essentially to defeat the Germans was done by them and all the blood was spilled by them. They're kind of correct. But as a young man, when I was reading all these different versions of World War II history and what we were taught, you know what the Germans are taught? Do you know German World War II history if you're in school in Germany? German World War II history is as follows. Some evil people took over our country. Handful of people, wasn't us. Very small handful of people took over our country, and the German resistance movement, along with the Allies, got rid of the evil people. So every country has a different history. And as a young man, I was like, well, this can't all be true. So that's when I started digging into it and understanding World War II history in a way that if I spoke it vocally in public and I had an audience, I'd get put in jail. But by all means, whatever country you're from, please look into this, because it's different in every country for a reason, because it suits their particular narrative. So what's the actual truth? Right. The truth is none of the countries who won teach an accurate version of World War II history. None of the countries who won teach the actual reasons why the war happened. None of the countries who won teach the aftermath and, what happened because the war was won by the people who won. So it's a rabbit hole that you are digging up publicly, and I'll see you in jail.
Well, because it just takes one seed of doubt. And so for me, having watched a documentary, my jaw on the floor, even learning, and I think this is really why the press attacked me, that so many of the people who executed those crimes were then protected by the state of Israel.
Absolutely.
That's already an existential crisis for the allied union between Israel and America. If Americans start waking up and going, wait a second, why would you guys be protecting people who, Solomon Morel, who executed these crimes against Germans, and you refused to extradite him when they actually wanted to prosecute him for his crimes? That doesn't really make sense. We were told, you especially should have a reaction to people that are committing a genocide against people for no reason.
Surely.
Then you go, okay, well, that's weird. And so it takes, for me, that was a major seed that was planted. Why would you not tell me about what happened to the Germans? And then when my German friends were privately thanking me and saying my videos were going viral in Germany, and that not only were their ancestors slaughtered, murdered, or ethnically cleansed and pushed out, but they then passed speech laws so they could never talk about it.
I know. Ever.
Think about how scary that is.
Your
child being lined up and shot.
Yeah. They just put an 83-year-old woman in jail. for questioning World War II history in Germany. I believe she's 83 or 93.
She's been in jail for a long time. She said she'll never
she's in and out of jail, just like me. And she'll never apologize. And I said this on Twitter, on X. I said, nobody, no judge, no lawyer, no court, nobody should be allowed to prosecute this woman unless they're older than her. Because you're taking people who have, it's like your child literally arguing with you about what you saw and how you lived in 1994, right, way before they were born. And I was like, well, isn't that wild that this woman was around in 1939, 1944? She was around, she saw things with her own eyes, and people who were born in the 1960s and 70s are sitting behind a desk with a book of what they're supposed to think about these events, saying this woman is wrong. I'm like, isn't that wild? Nobody who's younger than her should be allowed to even sit in that room and tell her that she has to go to jail for having her opinions, because she was literally an eyewitness to things. And yeah, incredibly scary. And you want to talk about, obviously, the people protected by the state of Israel. Look who was protected by the United States. Who was the first CEO essentially of NASA? Werner von Braun, the man who invented the V2 rocket, the man who invented this weapon of death that was obviously hit London a couple of times. He was the best rocket scientist in the world, but because he was a rocket scientist, okay, cool. You come to the United States. Oh, you're fine. Oh, you were just doing your rocket science, but we don't care that you were SS because we know you just needed the funding.
Yeah, and that should make people ask some questions. Like you're told that you went to go crush them, but then we
took them all. Everyone useful, was suddenly an American citizen. He's buried in the same graveyard as all the American war heroes and presidents, etc. And he's buried in a graveyard, I believe, in Washington D.C. alongside ex-presidents, war heroes, people who fought in the American Civil War. He's given a hero's burial, hero's funeral, but he was an SS officer, quite literally. And all the photos of him in his SS uniform have been scrubbed from the internet. You can't find them on the internet. And it's like, well, why don't you just admit it? We don't care. He's been dead a long time. Why don't you just admit
because it's
what you did? Yeah,
the seat of
Israel, the United States. Why don't you just admit what you did? It's not what you did. The people who did this are long dead. Why don't we just admit what actually happened and talk about real history and talk about what conversations were had and who was flown where and who was protected by who? Everyone's gone now. Everyone's gone. We're their great-grandchildren.
They're still mining that fake history to allow them to do things today. And so part of the reason why, and it breaks my heart because, I'm friends with so many Jewish people that I grew up with, and they have fallen victim to the same trap of BLM in Black America, where they teach you traumas about your history in the classroom. And then you have this fear, oh, slavery's going to come back unless I go out and defend George Floyd dying. I'm like, wait, that doesn't really make sense. And it's the same for Jewish Americans. I'm like, why are you defending the state of Israel when they're killing children? You literally don't have to do that. You're not required to defend George Floyd because you're Black. You're not required to defend, the stuff that Theodore Herzl and Bibi Netanyahu were up to simply because you're Jewish, but you see that this sort of psychological,
it's a trigger. It's a trigger that they plant on purpose. Oh, if people start questioning, the Holocaust is going to come back. Yeah. No, I have no interest in the Holocaust coming back. However, I think the state of Israel are war criminals. And I've said this a million times and it gets me in a lot of trouble. But I was actually, I was genuinely with a Jewish friend of mine last night. And we were talking very briefly on the subject because I don't really care to discuss the state of Israel. Everyone knows what I think about them. And I said, well, I think the governments of most countries are war criminals. I think the current administration of the United States are war criminals. I don't personally dislike Americans. You're American. I don't personally dislike people who are from Israel. I'm just telling you, your government are a bunch of criminals, and that's the way it is. And I could say the same about probably 75% of the governments on the planet. That's not a personal hatred for anyone. You're allowed to call out the crimes of governments.
Right. And you're not required to defend your government's crimes.
Exactly.